fake punt, delay of game, how close was that to actually getting off? Did you guys like the picture that presented? Just how aggravating is it not to get the opportunity to run that play, because obviously you showed it with the penalty?
I mean, it was frustrating. It was one that, some weeks we carry it, some weeks we don't. We thought that the look presented itself for us going into the week. It was something that we had worked on. The issue with it is it is a check, and, it's based on the look that we get. Being a little bit louder there, the communication took a little bit longer than obviously desired. And we were probably a half a second away from being able to get it off. But that starts with me in terms of creating that sense of urgency in the practice to make sure that we are able to get it off. But, it could have been obviously a huge play in the game, and definitely is a missed opportunity since we weren't able to get that run, because it was obviously there and it was executed pretty well.
Keon Coleman had that punt return. I think he went back on that one, caught the ball, and was able to. Was it just like did he outkick his coverage, or was it just like you guys like the blocking as well? What was it was a combination of both, or
probably a combination of both. I mean, obviously their punter had a big night. He was. He has a very strong leg, and we did feel like if Keon was able to go get one, there would be an opportunity to at least get it started. And I thought our guys did a fantastic job blocking. Keon did a great job of setting some blocks up and getting up into the return, and that was a big play in the game. I think we needed that at that moment, and that's one of the things that when we point at, you never know which play is going to be kind of the one. And we've been able to do that on special teams to spark some momentum shifts throughout the course of this year, and I thought that was a big play in that game as well.
Coach, Jared Verse and Patrick Payton played each around 50 snaps. You didn't rotate as much. How impressed with you above all about their stamina and their physicality that they played with for continuous 60 minutes?
Well, in the first half we did probably rotate more than we did in the second half. There's a lot of things that kind of factor into that, and one of them certainly is how long the series are. In the first half, they were able to establish some longer drives, which keeps guys on the field a little bit more than you would maybe like. In the second half, we were able to get a lot of 3-and-outs. There's a lot of TV timeout, a lot of media stuff going on in those nationally televised games. So there's a lot of time for them to rest in between series. So I just thought just the sheer number of plays that we played in the second half was what allowed those guys to play more than maybe they would typically play in terms of splitting reps in a game.
Two questions. First, have y'all played the best schedule of punters in the history of college football? I mean, that kid last night was better than the Duke kid. And did you know that going in, that he had that kind of leg?
We did. I mean, we knew going in that he was a really good player. We had a high level of respect for who he was. And, I think there's a couple things that lead to that. I think the training is probably so much better than it's ever been. I think now that that's the one position that we recruit really internationally across the board. So, that was another Australian kicker. They tend to be older, so like these guys are like men now playing as well. But I think there's a lot that factors into it. But we definitely have seen some really good punters. But I kind of like it from the standpoint that it does allow us to get some returns started. I'd much rather play that and have Keon have 15 yards of space before anyone's there than the guys who's hitting at 30 and 35 yards and there's people right on top of them every play.
And speaking of that, so the punt right before the safety where it gets down at the 6, when I watched the replay, Keon could have caught it at the 8, and there was nobody even at the 20-yard line. He could have just caught it and run forward for about 10 or 12 yards. Did y'all have a talk after that, and that's why he went and caught the next one? And because it was a very similar situation on the punt return he had for the 34-yard.
I mean, I think there was 3 of them that were very similar. There was the one that checked up and they were able to down it. There was the one that he caught and ran back, but then there was the one that went in the end zone. And really what he was thinking on the one that checked up was that he thought it was going to hit hard enough to go into the end zone. He was trying to draw the touchback out of it because, and those are always the toughest calls to make, like I said before, and I reiterate with him all the time, I trust him, and sometimes he's going to make a decision that doesn't work out, but that doesn't mean that I want him to second guess some of the decisions he's making. Because I think every week he's getting better and better, more confident, and he's had 3 or 4 really explosive returns. So, the one I wish we would have fielded, right? That checked up at the 6, but I'm also glad he didn't field the one that went into the end zone. So there can be a little bit of a catch-22 in terms of that, and I just want him to make the best decisions he possibly can because I do trust who he is and his decision-making ability.
We spent a lot of time on a play that didn't matter, that fake punt, but is part of getting that play off on time, but also not, and you got to check to it, but not also like looking like you're rushing to a fake or something like that? I mean, is that any part of it at all?
No, I think, when you watch, there's a lot of times we have to check our protections, and so I don't think that part would have stood out. I do think probably made a really big point of emphasis with the potential of crowd noise, with being on the road in that environment, of making sure that we over-communicated. Because the worst thing that you can have happen is that not everybody's on the same page in terms of that. And, with all that being said, there still has to be great shot clock awareness. We still have to be able to snap it. And, we probably missed it by about a half a second. But, I got to get them out faster. We got to operate with a greater sense of urgency. We probably needed to practice it with a greater sense of urgency, although the environment wasn't going to be the same. But there's a lot of things that factored into it, but it was disappointing because it was a missed opportunity in a game where we needed to get that spark, and that may have been able to have been that.
Staying on the fake punt, I know, and this might be a silly question, but in a game like that, when you're playing a desperate team, when you call the fake punt first, does it kind of take away the element of surprise that they try to do it, like, because they had a 4th and 1 that kind of looked like a situation they could have done the fake punt as well in?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people say that you want to get your fake or your trick play run before they run theirs, but like being on the other side of it, if somebody else did that, like that doesn't mean that we would have no intention of doing it later on. But 4th and 1, we weren't going to allow that to happen. I mean, we were in our punt safe when they were in that, so we left our defense on the field. And then in terms of just having that opportunity, really, we try to be very aggressive in what we do from a special team standpoint. The reason why we faked the punt in that situation was because the look was there. And it was something that we saw on tape, and it was there. The reason why we tried some of the onside kicks and some of the other things that have showed up is because they've presented themselves as being there and taking advantage of the opportunities. So we always want to look for ways to spark, a big play for us. And, when we see those opportunities, we certainly take advantage of them.
We'll go to Ira for the last one.
Jared was pretty sensational. Had some sensational plays in that game. What do you think that does for him? I mean, he's not a guy that lacks confidence, but I mean that's a game that'll be remembered individually for him as well.
Oh yeah, no, it was his opportunity to make a statement, and kind of have his place and Seminole history in terms of big game rivalries. It kind of reminded me a little bit, I thought about it afterwards, of how a couple years ago Jermaine had a really big game against Miami. And, he was able to get, I think, 3 sacks in that game and really forced a fumble, kind of really impacted that game. And I felt the same way about that as I did about Jared's game the other day in terms of here it is in a critical rivalry matchup, with obviously a lot higher stakes, because of where things are. But for him to go out and play his best in that game and that environment when we really needed it, I was proud for him, happy for what he was able to get done. And, hopefully that just continues to roll into this week.
Thanks, JP.
Thank you, guys.